What's up, guys? Welcome back to a perspective video here. We're still discussing two-point perspective, and what we're going to do today is we're going to look at some reference photos and we're going to break them down. That's simply all we're going to look at today, so that way we can kind of learn how do we break down these references and how do we find the references too that we need to create our picture. But I really think one of the best ways of learning is to look at something and break it down, whether it's trying to learn someone's style and then incorporating your own style into that too, right? Or whether it's looking at pictures of buildings and seeing what perspective they line up into. So I got several images here that we're going to look at, and we're just going to break down simply. I'm not going to go too detailed into each one, but let's open up the first image here. And okay, so we have this storefront, right? But you can see that we're looking at the corner of this building. And so that gives us the appearance that the building is, it's going this way and it's going this way, right? And we can see that the lines are converging down and up, and these are going down and up this way, right? So we definitely know it's not one point perspective. We got a point somewhere over here and a point somewhere over here. So we're definitely looking at 2-point, and this is the kind of images you want to look for if this is the perspective that you're trying to achieve, right? So we can break out our ruler. And one thing we want to look for too is we also want to remember that we're going to have a horizon line somewhere, right? And we want to remember, without having to find exactly where these points are, where the horizon line would be. So you always want to remember that if you have a horizon line, let's say it's there for now, everything up here in this upper section, we're looking up at. So like if there was a box, you would be seeing the bottom of that box, right? We would see this underside of the box, because this is where our eye is at, right here. So everything above, we're looking below, and everything below us, we're looking on top of, right? So then I would start to see the top of the box, or whatever the object is, right? So you want to be able to kind of look at a picture and be able to tell where that is without having to find the vanishing point first. So if we kind of zoom in here, take a look at this, we want to notice I'm still seeing the bottom of the window ledge here, okay? But I think I can kind of see a little bit of that underside there, but I think where the switch happens is probably somewhere around here. I think that's where my vanishing point is going to be. So I'm going to mark with green, and we'll see how close we get, okay? So I'm going to say it's somewhere around here, and then now I'm going to use my ruler and zoom out here, and we're going to find those vanishing points and see if we were somewhere in the right spot. Okay, let's stick with this brighter red. Alright, so I'm going to find some angles here. So I really like the angle of this top part of the building. Okay, I'm just going to take that line down somewhere over there. I don't know exactly where it's going to merge, but I'm just going to put it out there. And then can definitely just use the bottom of the building here. And you really want to find that angle. Okay, so it looks like it's going to go out even further than I thought. So, okay, say here, and well, somewhere all the way down there. So I'm going to come back to where I found this line, and we're going to extend this one out. So somewhere there, looks good. Okay, so just based on this, if I were to straighten out my ruler and put it this way, oh, look at that, the vanishing point according to this would be a little bit lower. But let's actually see if the vanishing point is straight left to right, because it's a possibility that it's not. The vanishing point can be on an angle sometimes. So let's find the other side. Oh, come on, ruler. Playing slip and slide with me here. Alright. A little more of an angle. Okay, can see that this angle is a lot more dramatic, right? Because this is where it's going. We're seeing less of the face of this side of the building. This building is more turned away from us and going down the street. So just like the first one, I'll find the bottom of the buildings here. Say that looks good enough for me. And I'll put it right over here. So if I take my ruler straight left to right and I put it up, yeah, it lines up pretty well. Cool. So if I take out my green, I can throw in my vanishing point here. Right? And so now we know where this picture's horizon line is and its vanishing point, right? So we have our vanishing point sitting right about here too. That's our, we got 1 and 2, and this is where everything would converge from. So everything going this way would all be going towards that vanishing point, and everything going this way would all, of course, be going to that vanishing point. Cool. You guys can kind of see too, I think this is like a computer generated image because this ground is very smooth. So obviously this does line up pretty well on a perspective drawing, but not all of the images that we look at are going to be on a straight left and right horizon line. So let's jump to the next image. I don't want to spend too much time just breaking down these pictures completely because I want to give you guys a good variety of images here. So this is a very old time photo, right? So let's see if we can break this down. First, I want to do again where I'm going to see how well I can place my horizon line. I was wrong last time, but these buildings really kind of help because I can see that the building line, if it's going up or down, right, it looks like there's a big switch somewhere around here. So I'm going to say the horizon line is definitely somewhere within that floor. It could potentially be a little lower. We'll see. Okay. So now I put my guess in. Gonna switch to red, break out our ruler here, and let's find our vanishing points. So I just like to use the tops and the bottoms of the building. I think those are going to be our 2 most dramatic points that'll give you the quickest results to finding your vanishing points. Okay, this ruler is just snapping into place and it won't let me choose the exact angle I want. Let me see if I come down here and grab one of these lines. Wow. Why is there an automatic snap feature? Okay. We'll go from here. And down. Okay, I know it doesn't need to be that long, but just for sake of making sure I got my line where it needs to be, I'm going to grab from this line here, because this line is nice and bold. I can really make sure I line up with it. Pretty good. Okay, and here. Alright, so looks like that should be the vanishing point. And if I come across here, it looks like I almost got the horizon line pretty good there on my second guess, right? But let's actually see if this is a perfectly lined up horizon line or if it's on an angle. So, okay, we got our next vanishing point here. I'm gonna make that a little longer just in case. And let's try to come back up here. And we can use a different line too. I can come here and go to one of these windows if I wanted to and use that. They're all converging to the same vanishing point, remember? So it doesn't really matter. Okay. So now, straight left and right with my ruler, and I notice that these don't line up. So is that allowed? Is that okay? It's perfectly fine because you have to remember that this is a photograph. And first off, perspective is just an artist's tool to kind of like show and essentially fake what's going on here with the lines of the building, right? So in terms of looking at photograph, you're not going to get the exact principles of perspective because it's really an artist tool to kind of cheat this. But at the same time, it's a photograph, and you don't know if at the time maybe the camera was slightly tilted, depending on where the person was standing. Maybe the ground was a little uneven if they were standing on top of a building or something like that, or maybe they're on a hill of some sort. So it's actually perfectly fine. It actually adds a little bit more realism and interest to your pictures too, if you incorporate some angle into your perspective drawing as well. So let's see. I think this is as good as the ruler is going to let me get close to it, because otherwise it's just going to snap into place. So I'm going to draw it through there. Okay, and you can see it's on a little bit of a tilt, right? So what that's telling me is if I actually came in and took this picture and I rotated it maybe just a bit this way, that would actually be straighter in terms of the photograph, or at least in terms of using our perspective tool. But it doesn't have to be that way necessarily. Cool. So let's jump to another one. All right. So I think for this one, I'm going to have to make this one a little smaller. Let's get a good look at it first. So we got New York City here. It's a nice skyline picture. Subtle in terms of two-point perspective, but you can still see that you do have the lines. Let's push that guy up there. You do still have the lines of the building. Come on, layer. There we go. Going this way, and they're starting to go up, right? As we look at them, they're following a form. So this is still two-point perspective, but the reason I have to make it smaller is because our vanishing point is probably going to be pretty far off to the edge. At least I'm going to assume so. Oops. Telling it to transform the wrong thing here. Alright, here we go. Okay, I'm going to make it really small, and we're just going to see if we can make this work. It might even be, the vanishing point might even go a little further from what I'm looking at, but hopefully this will work for us. If not, I can always make it smaller. Okay. Now, let's break out our handy dandy never wants to work for me ruler and line it up. Alright, looks good. Draw that line as far as I can. And now let's just find another building going the same direction. Ooh, I can already see that that line is definitely going to be going further. Alright, well, I know what to do then. I'm just going to undo that line. I'm going to make this image even smaller. Sometimes you have to do this, guys, in order to get like this, the kind of picture you want. Sometimes you do have to draw the vanishing point way off of your paper's perimeter. Okay, so I know it's super teeny tiny now, but luckily I can zoom in and out on this digital platform. So let's try to get that angle again. See if we can at least find one side and keep it on the paper. Alright, and I'm going to draw this guy in, going somewhere over here. And why don't we come over to this building and steal from one of these very teeny tiny windows. Does that look like it's lined up? Here, I'll go with. Ooh, there we go. Okay, draw a line, and just gonna bring my ruler up. All right, so see for this one, I can make it smaller and I can keep going, and eventually they would meet up, right? But I don't want to spend forever on this picture, so let's just try to get the other side and see what that gives us. Let me scooch in closer because this side's in shadow. I can barely see it. Alright, that looked good. So create a line going that way. And I will take this line. Looks something like that. Maybe a little less. There we go. And, okay. So it looks like these guys, if we kept these guys going, will converge somewhere around here. And here. Okay. Cool. So by that logic, I could probably take, assuming that this is a straight photograph, I could probably assume, well, like, it definitely would not line up, actually. So it's another case where the camera might have been tilted, or the perspective tool is just not working in terms of this particular photograph. But it could still be created. So it looks like it would actually probably be somewhere tilted, like maybe slightly, but like, why are you sliding so much? Okay, like somewhere like that, right, where they would converge off into the distance. You'd have your one vanishing point all the way down somewhere over there, and then right here is your second vanishing point. Okay. This does bring up a really good point that I did want to talk about, and I do feel like this is kind of the instance to talk about this. In order to create a realistic two-point perspective drawing, your vanishing point should not actually be on the same piece of paper that you're drawing. It should be somewhere off the paper, because you don't necessarily want, like, I'm just going to do a pretty crude drawing here. Let me just get rid of this so we have blank. So if I have a vanishing point and I have my, or sorry, a horizon line, I have my two vanishing points, and I'm doing a building, and I want this to be a really tall building. This angle is a little too extreme in terms of realistically looking at an image. Because even if you remember when we looked at this guy, this angle is extreme, but the vanishing point still falls off the page, right? So in order to create something more realistic, what you'd want is, let's get rid of some of this, is here's your vanishing point, or here's your horizon line, right? Horizon line. And we're going to place a piece of paper, whatever kind of orientation you want. I'll change color to represent paper. Paper will be blue. So maybe I want it to be like a horizontal or landscape style. This is my paper, right? So we got paper that I'm drawing on. And then what I have is potentially the paper could be taped down and maybe somewhere on the table I've designated a spot. Or what you can do is you can tape a piece of paper, a long piece of paper, to the sides like that. And then your drawing would be happening in here, and it'd be going all the way off to these vanishing points, right? But you wouldn't actually see any of this business once the drawing is finished. Your drawing would then end up looking more like this, right? And it would have more of a realistic kind of perspective look to it, because not everything is constrained to the proportions of just your paper. Right? So that's that's another point that I'm trying to make with these references too. You'll notice that the vanishing point sometimes can fall into the picture. Very rarely will it fall into the picture though. So let's look at a few more. Here, I don't even need to break this one down. This is just a drawing that I kind of wanted to show, where you can see that this guy's thinking of a full town. He's even thinking of background, of like a background going on. Whoop. Come on. There you go. Right, he's got street intersection here, and you can see already, right? The vanishing point's going up this way. Right, these lines are letting us know. The other vanishing point's going this way. Okay, and you can definitely see that if I were to continue this line, it's not going to end right here, right? It's going off the page, somewhere over there, off the page. Okay. Don't want to spend too much time on this one though, because I do want to show you guys interior shots, because remember we talked about interior when I first showed you 2-point perspective. So here we have an interior shot of maybe just like a waiting room somewhere, or the inside could be like the lobby part of an apartment building or whatever it is, right? I'm gonna make it just a little smaller, and we're gonna find that vanishing point here. Okay, so if you guys remember, for finding the vanishing point of an interior shot, it's actually the opposite, right? So my vanishing point for this wall, what would be good if I made a layer? There we go. The vanishing point for this wall is going to be this way, and the vanishing point for this wall is going to be going this way, okay? If my arrows confuse you, I'm going to draw it out, so let's figure it out. So I'm going to grab the bottom floor line here, go up, okay, somewhere over there, it's probably long enough, and I'm going to grab the ceiling. Where'd that line come from? Okay, and that looks good. There we go. Easy enough, right? So now let's find the other side. So looks like we got some pretty good angles going on here too. So I think that we're pretty within our perimeter. All right, good enough. Off that way. I can find my ceiling line here. Somewhere like that looks good. And through. All right. So if I snap this back left and right, looks like, yeah, it about lines up pretty good. Okay, so I could come in with my horizon line color, which is my green, and there we go. We can just slap in our vanishing points. Right there. Right there. All right. See, so then you can just kind of keep going with this concept, right? Where it's like, if you wanted to do the brick, all of the brick is going to be heading this way, and then all of a sudden starts going up, right? You can see that the, oh, come on, get rid of all those scratchy lines. There we go. You can see that the bench is going towards that vanishing point. You can find the perimeter that the pot sits in, even though it's round. All these things. Right. So now we're gonna keep going. So we found this interior. So this should give you kind of an idea of like, this interior is pretty minimum, but it's filled with just like kind of everyday things. What if we looked at something a little more complex? Right, because we want to be able to use this tool to build our own kind of things, right? So here we go. We have a living room kind of thing, fireplace, chairs. We got a rug, a nice kind of wooden beam ceiling in there. So can we do the same thing that we just did for the other room? Of course, it has all the same lines that we can break down. It's just a little more detailed of an image. So I'm going to shrink it down just to make sure that we can fit all our lines on our page here. Okay, should be good enough, hopefully. Yeah, let's go ahead and break this down. So, zoom in a bit. I'm going to find the right side first, or I should say the right vanishing point first, but it's going to give me information for the the left side. If I can line this up, that would be awesome. Okay, there we go. All right, so draw this down here. I think that gave us plenty of room. I'm just going to grab from the bottom of the fireplace here. Which this looks good. Okay. Yep, found that side. All right. Let's go ahead and find the other side. So looking for my indication lines that help me out here, right? So I can definitely see this one, the window's still pretty clear. I think that's good if I take that line over. Looks like I might need to extend that line a little bit. Just thinking about in terms of my horizon line, right? So let's see. Did we put enough room on the page? Ooh, it looks like we're going to be just slightly off, but that's alright. We know where it is. Cool. So all this information that we have now is going to give us the information for the rest of this. So we know that this entire wall is everything from the shelves to the top of the fireplace to the top of this frame, the TV. It's all going to this vanishing point over here. Okay. Now, how do we find the vaulted um, wooden beam ceiling? It's all coming from this vanishing point over here. You can see I can line it up and find each one of these pillars. And then when I want to find the thickness of the vault, I just go straight up and down. And then you have each one right here, right? You can see there's straight lines from the wall, and they're having objects, like the fireplace, it comes out. It's not just stuck in the wall, right? So it comes out, and you can see that even here where it sticks out a little further. Okay. All these things are just built up. So you start with your basics of finding your vanishing point and maybe starting with like the square of the room. You got 2 walls, right? Empty walls. And then that'll give you your floor space and your ceiling. And then from there, it's like you can take this wherever your imagination wants. And that's why we're using these references to give us ideas for our own images, okay? So we'll look at one more. And I only want to do this one because I do want to show you that when you're doing perspective, it's not just a tool for only buildings. I think that's kind of like a common misconception. It's also used for anything from objects. Like you can definitely see this used on robots and cars, objects of that kind of sort. So just very quickly, I want to show that this car, especially in this picture too, where it's a nice kind of exaggerated angular pose of a car. And I chose a Jeep too because Jeeps are a lot more square, but you can really do this with any car. You just have to be careful because cars have rounded edges and it kind of looks distorted in terms of perspective, but that's what makes cars look so nice. But if you can kind of just pretend like these curves are flat for a second, get myself a new layer, okay, and bring it over, and then find those flat angles that show you where this car is going. Okay, so I can already see that this isn't going to line up, so really quickly I'm just going to actually grab this photo and let's make it smaller. Okay, and we'll come back and find my lines. So got rid of that red line, so let's come in here and put that back. And then, I don't know, I see this kind of crossbar underneath. Okay. And then, everything else will should line up with about that. Okay. And of course, this shouldn't dictate the end result of what your card design looks like, but you can see that it starts to kind of help you flesh out sorry, where it sits in perspective. Okay. So we can also come in and find the other side, right? Because just like a building, it's going to have 2 sides to it when it's sitting at this perspective, because it's not coming straight at us. It's sitting off on an angle, and we're looking at a corner of it, right? So this side is a little more dramatic, a little more exaggerated, so the vanishing point is closer to us. Okay, just say that's good. And there you go. Right? Here we got our image, and we can find our vanishing point right in here. Just like that. Okay. So why did we go about doing this? Reason being, I want to do a 2-part video for next week and the week after, where we're going to gather images together and build our own type of perspective drawing. Okay, so I'm going to be doing my own and demonstrating it for you guys, but I want you guys to also find your own images and what inspires you, and think about, do you want to create a car? Do you want to create a car within a city? Do you want to do an interior? If you're doing interior, what kind of interior? bedroom, bathroom, living room, hotel waiting lobby, right? Whatever it is. You can do exterior shot like buildings like we started off with. If you guys need help, Google Images is of course easy. You can also go on Pinterest, and I just typed in up top here 2-point perspective building photography, and look, there's all these images. Like this one looks perfect. Um, this one, right? Look for types of buildings that you would want to incorporate in a city that you want to create, not necessarily just recreating a picture. Try to find a couple references, and we're going to try to mash that into one picture together, okay? So the goal here is for you guys to do a little reference looking, and once you find the images that you like, for this one, if you wanted more interior shots, you could always just type into here probably interior, and you'd get those references as well. And then we'll start to build our own pictures together, okay? And I'll do a 2-part series about how I'm going to build mine with basic shapes, and then the detail I add on top. And then from there, we are good to go, okay guys? Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next week.